Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. The webinar will be start shortly. So this webinar will be start on 8 Korean Standard Time. And this webinar will be held in English with simultaneous translation into Korean. At the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can see interpretation button. Please click interpretation in the meeting controls, and you can select a language channel. If you have any questions, please type your questions on the chat box, chat feature on the Zoom. Thank you for joining us. Webinar on carbon neutrality will begin shortly. This webinar will be will be held in English with a simultaneous interpretation into Korean. So at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can see interpretation button. Please click interpretation and the meeting controls and select the language channels. So I'd like to introduce the order of the presentation. Firstly, there will be opening remarks from Vice President of Korea Cosmetic Association, and then followed the presentation sessions. The USA start first, and then Korea, Japan, and lastly, Europe. Welcome to the international webinar. The topic of this event is carbon neutrality, global trends, and impacts on the cosmetic industry. This webinar will be focusing on sustainable and eco-friendly packaging. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Kyoungok, and I'm the General Manager of Korea Cosmetic Association. It's a very great honor to be the MC for this webinar. Climate change is one of the most important global challenges that we all face today, and now we are looking at a new global paradigm for responding to the climate crisis. Today, we are gathered here today in order to explore proactive responses to the new paradigm to climate crisis and share strategies among cosmetic industry to achieve carbon neutrality. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded to be available for viewing post-webinar. If you have any questions for the presenters, please use the chat feature in this June webinar. So this webinar is now being held in English. And at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can see the interpretation button. Please click the interpretation in the meeting controls, and you can select a language channel. Now, without further ado, I would like to give floor to Mr. Lee Myung-gyu of Vice President of Korea Cosmetic Association.
안녕하십니까. 대한화장품협회 이명규 부회장입니다. 탄소 중립은 최근 국제사회의 가장 중요한 이슈입니다. 세계 주요 국가들이 탄소 중립 추진을 선언하는 가운데 한국 정부도 2050년 탄소 중립을 발표하여 이 거대한 흐름에 동참하고 있습니다. 특히 코비드-19 대유행으로 인해 환경 문제의 심각성에 대한 인식이 더욱 높아지게 되었습니다. 많은 소비자들이 환경 문제에 대해 우려하고 있으며 환경 친화적 제품에 대한 관심이 날로 높아지고 있습니다. 이처럼 전 세계적으로 기후변화와 환경위기 대응에 대한 요구가 높아지고 있는 가운데 화장품 업계도 탄소 중립 목표 달성을 위해서 ESG 경영, 친환경 용기 사용, 재생에너지 활용, 플라스틱 재사용, 감량화, 재활용, 공병수거 등의 많은 활동을 펼치고 있습니다. 이러한 활동을 한국에서도 열심히 하고 있고 세계에서도 기후변화 때문에 다양한 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 오늘 웨비나는 탄소 중립이라는 목표를 향해 나가기 위하여 주요 국가의 화장품 회사들이 추진한 내용을 소개하는 자리입니다. 짧은 시간이지만 많은 정보와 경험이 공유되는 자리가 되길 바라며 다시 한번 오늘 웨비나에 참석해 주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. Now, let's please welcome our first presenter, Carolyn Bakas. She is the Vice President of Climate Solutions at Climate Impact Partners. She assists companies in navigating the voluntary carbon and renewable energy markets, as well as the evolving frameworks for carbon neutrality and net zero targets. So, Ms. Carolyn, I'm going to hand over to you now to share with the audiences. Please go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you should be able to see the presentation now. Hello, everyone. My name is Carolyn Bacchus, and I am the Vice President of Client Solutions at Climate Impact Partners. I'll be speaking with you today about our work with companies like yourselves and others on product level greenhouse gas emission reductions, carbon neutral certifications, and then how to communicate the work that you're doing to your customers. Then you'll be hearing some really excellent examples and real life experience from some brands that are doing some pretty incredible work on their own product level footprints. And a big thank you to ICCR for the wonderful event and symposium, and to Personal Care Products Council, PCPC, for inviting me to share this information with you all. I'm going to share a little bit about PCPC, and then I'll tell you about our company. I'll tell you about the Carbon Neutral Protocol and Carbon Neutral Product Certification, which is one credible certification that your products can carry if you are looking for a carbon neutral claim that will properly communicate the climate action that you're taking. Then I'll take you through the step-by-step process of obtaining carbon neutral product certification if it's something that you wanted to bring to your brands. Then at the end, we'll have some time for questions after we look at a few case studies. So a bit about PCPC before I move on to my company, Climate Impact Partners. So the Personal Care Products Council was founded in 1894, and it's the leading national trade association representing cosmetics and personal care products companies in the United States. PCPC's 600 member companies represent more than 90% of the US beauty industry, and they are some of our most beloved brands globally and here in the United States. The brands manufacture, distribute, and supply the vast majority of personal care products marketed in the United States, and they're global leaders committed to product safety, quality, and innovation. Some of the work PCPC has done that I want to highlight that's specifically related to sustainability would include their support of members' sustainability practices and their members' reputations through their programs that they implement, including things like their report called Creating a More Beautiful World, their sustainability handbook that's available to members, and which serves as a resource to help small and medium-sized companies with climate action. And then they've also been running a climate webinar series since 2020, and that continued now. And then a bit about Climate Impact Partners, the company that I work for. We provide 4 main solutions for our clients. So we have a large portfolio of offset projects, and then we also develop new carbon offset projects that feed into the voluntary carbon market and help our customers with their carbon reduction goals. We sell renewable energy in about 60 markets around the world. And then the 4th thing that we do that I'll really focus on today is we created and maintain the Carbon Neutral Protocol, which is a public framework document for companies to make credible carbon neutrality claims. And then the carbon neutral certifications sit on top of that document. We've been in this business for a long time. Climate Impact Partners is the merger of 2 companies that were founded both in 1997. So for over 20 years, we have been working with corporates on their sustainability action, even before it was really in the top sight of stakeholders, investors, and customers. We operate all over the world. Our headquarters is in Oxford, England. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina in the United States. And then we have people on all sides of the planet, including an office in Nairobi, Kenya, that focuses on developing a lot of our carbon offset projects. And just a bit about our history. So as you all probably have realized, as you've spent time in the personal care products world and cosmetics world, that there's been a shift in expectations from your stakeholders and clients, and also potentially regulators, on safety, sustainability, and what is in demand of your customers. And so we have seen that clearly through our work only in sustainability over the last 20 years, and have developed along with customer expectations. And one of the key things that we saw in 2002, so 20 years ago, was that our clients who were beginning to do some really impactful work in sustainability did not have a specific framework or standard to make their claims against. They said to us, there's an absence of the definition of what a credible carbon neutrality claim is. There wasn't an ISO standard at the time, or past 2060 and some of those things that we have now. And that's what drove us to create the Carbon Neutral Protocol. So it's now in its 20th edition. It's updated every year. As I said, it's a publicly available open source framework document. It's about 90 pages long, and you can find it at carbonneutral.com. And in this document, it has definitions and resources and sort of a guidebook of what you should be doing at either the company level, the product level, or the activity level in order to make that credible carbon neutrality claim. It's aligned with other standards that you'd see. And as I go through today, it's not the only framework that exists, and it's very complementary of many of the others that you may be working within. And so why the focus on carbon neutrality? So we understand the environmental benefits of focusing on sustainability, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions of our companies. The cosmetics industry is not as intensive on the environment as something like oil and gas industry or the airline industry or something. However, the amount of manufacturing, packaging, obviously it's something you all want to address, whether your company is a small brand, or a global company with hundreds of brands under it. And so claims of carbon neutrality that are following a specific definition or framework allow you to make clear and understandable claims and action to your customers without being ambiguous in what your claim is or what your process was to get there. Carbon neutrality also enables you to take immediate action. So we know how to measure carbon footprints at a product level. It's usually something like a life cycle assessment. And then we also know ways to reduce those emissions, both internally and externally. And carbon neutrality allows you to do all that today as you're on a longer term pathway to decarbonization. And then it also, claims of carbon neutrality also drive internal emission reductions. So though for a current state of carbon neutrality, especially at a product level, you're likely purchasing some offsite renewable energy or verified carbon offsets to get to your zero claim. The point of doing that is that you're encouraging your company to look internally at practices and also your suppliers to indicate to them that this is something you're interested in order to eventually have all of those reductions happen internally as the cost of carbon neutrality continues to go up. Now, definitions are important here because some people are very well versed on definitions of what each of these things mean, but some of them may even be new for people in the audience. So carbon neutral, the definition is a current state which is achieved when the greenhouse gases are measured related to a company or activity or product, whatever your boundary is around what your claim is. They're measured for a specific period of time. Typically, companies will look at 1 year worth of greenhouse gas emissions and then reduced and offset to zero for that period of time that you're making the claim. It can be through internal and external reductions. I'll get into that in a little bit of what I mean by that. And so that is the state, the definition. Then you can make a claim of carbon neutrality with a certification behind it. So what that means when it relates to the carbon neutral certification is that you've achieved that definition current state and a third party has signed off that you've done that and taken the steps to ensure that your measurement and reduction were all in line with a credible claim. Then net zero is another term that is coming up more and more, not as much related to products, but related to the company as a whole, either the brand or the parent company. And this is more of a future state that we're working towards where you are making reductions over time to in the future achieve a net zero emissions state where you have internally reduced emissions and then any unreduced emissions you are covering with direct consumption of renewable energy or carbon removal projects or carbon removal credits. Like I said before, there are many other certifications and claims in the market beyond carbon neutral certification. So that's the one I'm talking about today because our company is the licensor of that certification. But there's many, many others, and you would just look at them with the same scrutiny of making sure that it's aligned with a credible framework, that the claim is very transparent, that a third party is ensuring that the certification has happened. And then you can also look to things like NGO lists of certifications or Amazon Climate Pledge Friendly or something like that to indicate to you which certifications do stand up to this scrutiny. So moving into the carbon neutral certification. So it is, like I said, based on the carbon neutral protocol, and it's been around for 20 years. It has expanded over time as science has developed, as research has developed, and also as the corporate client has demanded more accuracy in the claim. And so it's a very, very strong, aligned with current best practice certification. And there's different rules for what your different boundaries are. So for a carbon neutral company certification, you're looking at a boundary around the operational control of your company. So that's, and sorry, I'm going to use some technical terms for a moment, but that would be all of your scope 1 and 2 emissions, and then key scope 3 categories. Now for a cosmetics or personal care products manufacturer, scope 3 is a really big deal to your company, because you potentially have the majority of your emissions outside of your operational control or your immediate operational control. And then that's where some of the decision has to come in from the company of what type of claim you're wanting to make. At the product level, which is the one I'm going to focus on most today, it's a little bit more clear cut, where if you are pursuing carbon neutral product certification, you are required to do a cradle to grave life cycle assessment performed by a third party, and then reduce all of that to zero. So it is a very strong claim in the market, takes out a lot of the question or ambiguity of what's being covered in that certification. Now, there are 5 typical steps to your carbon neutral certification journey. So the first is define, understanding what your boundary is. Are you looking at a product? Are you looking at a conference that you want to certify carbon neutral, whatever it may be? Step 2, measure, like I said, using a third party critically reviewed footprint, whether that's at the product or company level. Step 3, you're making your targets, which are your goals to reduce the footprint. Step 4, do those reductions that you've targeted. And then step 5, communicate. I'm going to go into each of these in a little bit more depth. So define, like I said, it can be at the company level, product level. There's over 24 different boundaries that you can draw, and you see here on the roundel here. It's very specific. The scope of whatever your certification is on the mark that you would be licensed to put on your company materials or product. And going specifically into product. So this is a text-heavy slide, I know, but these are the tables that you would see in the carbon neutral protocol, which very clearly lay out what you need to measure and reduce. And so with product certification, like I mentioned, you are required to do a full cradle to grave life cycle assessment and then reduction. So you're looking at your extraction and processing of raw materials, your manufacturing, distribution, onward distribution, the retail emissions or the retail related emissions of your product, the use phase, and disposal. And then you can see over here on the right are other product level certifications that you can get. So say a company is not ready to take on that full cradle to grave assessment and reduction, you can do something like a carbon neutral packaging certification, where you are studying only the packaging that your product is in, and that's what you're reducing to zero, and that's what you're building your whole claim around. Then step 2, measure. So I keep using the term life cycle assessment. I imagine many of you have either engaged in a life cycle assessment, seen one, or at least heard of it. A life cycle assessment is a very straightforward type of assessment that is done typically to an ISO standard with an internal or external critical review by your assessor. And then that document typically comes to you in a final report. That report is what you are able to say, this is how I know what the per unit footprint of my product is. And typical best practice says that a life cycle assessment is good for about 5 years, unless there's been a material change in your product that you either want reflected in a reduction calculation, or if you've moved manufacturing to a different region of the world or something like that, that would need to be updated. And we don't do any of the measurements. So our company, since we are the person or the body that gives the certification, and then we also likely are managing renewable energy and carbon offsets related to your certification if you need those, we require a third party to do this assessment. We have a network of providers that we know are well-versed in the carbon neutral protocol. but we also let you use any credible firm that you may already work with, and then we run a calculations check on that assessment. So there's a lot of choice for you all in who would perform these third-party assessments that are required, and a very good idea to have performed if you're going to make these claims in the market. So then on to step 3. So step 3 is targeting your reductions. So if you're doing something like a carbon neutral product certification, your target is going to be 0. And you can plot out how you plan to make those reductions, both internally and by using external instruments like energy attribute certificates or carbon offsets. And then step 4 is reduce. So like I said, you're performing those reductions to get to 0. Your internal reductions would be things like reducing the emissions related to manufacturing. So potentially having on-site solar at your manufacturing facility, so you're no longer pulling brown power from the grid, or moving to recyclable packaging, or potentially reducing your amount of ingredients or sources of ingredients so that there aren't as many miles or kilometers traveled by those ingredients to get to your manufacturing facilities. This could also be as simple as energy efficiency retrofits in your facilities, or forklift electrification. So there's all sorts of different things that you're probably already doing some degree of that would count towards those internal reductions of the product's footprint. And then anything left over to get to 0, you can work with external reduction mechanisms like a renewable energy certificate or a verified carbon offset. And then to go into those pieces a little bit, so those external reductions, because that's something that our company does. When you are purchasing renewable energy certificates or carbon offsets to support a carbon neutrality claim, you want to be very sure that they're following a standard of traceability, and that that the projects have been developed and monitored in accordance with a governing body. So in the carbon offset world, that's called ICROA. And then for renewable energy certificates, each would have a registry or a in-market requirement of what that project needs to be able to provide and document, to make sure that you know that when you're purchasing those renewable energy megawatt hours or those metric tons of carbon offsets to make your claim, that they're credible. And so our organization develops those projects and then runs due diligence on many, many other projects in the market. And here's a look at where our projects are and what types they are. So if you're saying, you know, to get my carbon neutral certification, I'm going to need 10,000 metric tons of carbon offsets to fill the gap between my internal reductions and 0, we would show you a portfolio of projects from around the world of all different types and prices, and then those would be retired in your company's name in order to support your certification. And just an example, we have hundreds of projects that we've worked with or developed around the world. This is an example of a forest project in Canada called Darkwoods. So you, as the purchaser of credits from a project, would have access to project descriptions, photos. We do project visits and things like that with clients. And so this is a key part of the underpinning of your certification. And we make sure that you have as much information as you want to communicate that with your customer. Which brings me to step 5, communication. So communication is very important for 2 reasons when you're making these claims. One is due to transparency and being as clear as possible with your claims so that you can get out ahead of any scrutiny or questions about what you mean by carbon neutrality or what you did to get there. So effectively communicating in a very transparent way is always what we would recommend. And then the other reason why communication is so important is, though it's great to do, to take sustainable actions and to be working on climate at your company, but if you're not talking about it and you're not telling the market about it and your stakeholders, then you may miss an opportunity to push your other peers and competitors to also reduce their emissions. And then you can also let your customers know, especially because we know sustainability is a key buying criteria for a lot of consumers. And then you can get more attention for the work that you're doing. We provide communication support for our customers. So when you become certified or make a purchase of renewable energy or carbon offsets, we provide you with those materials to create a press release, social media posts. We review everything for you. And then we're also happy to provide additional support, whether it be a webinar or a CSR report or something like that. Our carbon neutral product certification is also part of the Amazon Climate Pledge Friendly group of certifications. So I know many of your products are sold on Amazon. And as of April 2021, our certification was included in that group. And that's been very, very exciting because the launch of Climate Pledge Friendly has, Amazon has seen a huge amount of interest and participation in shopping that way. So you can filter all the products through products that carry one of the certifications that Amazon has identified as worthy of being part of this group of certifications that are benefiting the environment or reducing the environmental impact of that product. So that's things like certain textile certifications, FSC, Rainforest Alliance, other certifications that you're familiar with, and also includes the carbon neutral product certification. And we manage that process for you as well. So we directly are able to upload SKU numbers and things like that to Amazon to apply the badge to your product. And then some client examples. So you can see the use of the logo and communications with other organizations that carry carbon neutral certification, whether it's at the product or a different boundary level. And I believe you may have access to the slides after this, but you can also go to carbonneutral.com to see some of these videos or case studies and examples. And I'm going to specifically focus on Bulldog because it is a cosmetics or personal care product that we've done. But as you can see here, Microsoft did an anniversary run of Xboxes, Logitech gaming headsets, Yorkshire tea, Lime scooters. So not necessarily cosmetics, however, lots of different, very interesting, cool product level certifications. But looking at Bulldog specifically, so Bulldog is a skincare, shaving, and grooming and personal care products company out of the UK, focused specifically on men as the customer. It's now available in over 30 countries around the world and 50,000 stores around the world. And their key, most popular product is their Original Moisturizer. And Original Moisturizer is now certified as carbon neutral product. And so they went through that whole journey that I had just gone through. So they defined what boundary or scope they wanted to work with. So that was that hero product of theirs, the moisturizer. Then they worked with a third party to have that life cycle assessment performed. They targeted zero as their goal emissions through internal and external reductions. They reduced all the way to zero, and then they communicated about it. So they purchased, part of those reductions were the external reductions, purchasing a high quality portfolio of verified carbon credits. And then they also did some things internally to reduce as well, including the use of a single vessel quenching method when creating their moisturizers so that it minimizes the energy intensity of needing heating or cooling of water. They also introduced sugarcane plastic packaging for the Original Moisturizer, which replaced the fossil fuel-based plastics packaging, and that actually reduced the product's emissions by 19%. And those are the sort of things that you'll see in the life cycle assessment. So a very cool project there. And then step 5, communicate. Like I said, it's important to tell the market what you are doing. And you can see the ad here on the right with the cute bulldog. It's on buses and billboards in mostly the UK. And it's talking about how a smaller carbon footprint is definitely the way to go. And you can do that through Bulldog. And then I won't go too far into HP's case study, but I put this here because, you know, if you think about the task of footprinting some of your products, I know that it can seem like a big task to undertake, or maybe you've even done a life cycle assessment and you know that it can be at a cost and it takes up a lot of time to provide data and get those projects done. But when you look at something as intricate and that has as many pieces as a printer or another electronic, hopefully that can reassure you that many different products go through this process, even really tricky ones with hundreds of different parts and pieces coming from all over the world. And a life cycle assessor can help you get your arms around what the emissions are of that product. And with that, that's the end of my slides. And thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll let Ms. Kim handle questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carolyn. So we will go ahead and take some questions for now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the chat feature in this Zoom webinar. So Carolyn, could you see the chatting box? We can have 4 or 5 questions. If you can.
I can also, I see that there's a lot of questions. I'll also pull these down and I can type and send you responses because I know we can't, you know, eat into other presenters' time.
Then could you type the answer for each questions? So yeah.
I can take some now, but if we need to move on, I'll be sure to get back to people who asked.
Yeah, thank you again, Ms. Carolyn, for answering those questions and for the great presentation. So now our next presenter is Ms. Hong-Soo Jung of Amorepacific. She is the team leader of Amorepacific Environmental Strategy Team. Ms. Hong-Soo Jung, I hand over to you now. Please go ahead.
네, 안녕하세요.
It is great to be here. I am Hong-Soo Jung from Amorepacific's Environmental Strategy Team.
네, 안녕하세요.
Once again, I am Hong-Soo Jung from Amorepacific's Environmental Strategy Team. Today, in line with the theme of this conference, I will introduce what activities Amorepacific has been doing in relation to carbon neutrality.
네, 아직도 많이 나쁘실까요?
So, can you hear me?
Ms. Soo-Jung Hong.
죄송한데
Well, can you check if I can be heard well? Maybe through the chat function? I hope that everybody can hear me.
You now will.
네, 그러면
Okay, great. Thank you, and I will then proceed. Once again, I am Hong-Soo Jung from Amorepacific. In line with the theme of today's conference, I will introduce Amorepacific's activities in relation to carbon neutrality, as well as our efforts and examples of sustainable packaging to respond to the plastic issue, which is a global challenge. This is the agenda of my presentation. I will first give a brief introduction to our company, Amorepacific, and what efforts we have made for environmental management so far, and what goals we have to pursue eco-friendly management going forward. Before I deliver the main contents of my presentation, I would like to touch upon what kind of company Amorepacific is and why we are taking the lead or attempting to take the lead in responding to the circular economy and carbon neutrality. The reason is because the vocation that all Amorepacific employees must follow is we make a more beautiful world, which is our mission. In addition, in order to keep with our vocation or calling, we have established 5 principles in order for us to practice what we preach. Amorepacific has a history of 75 years and is a K-beauty leading company with about 34 brands in 32 countries around the world. In the cosmetics business, we have Solhwasu Laneige, Innisfree, and other global representative brands. And we have personal care products such as Ryo, as well as Osolok in the tea market, as well as Vital Beauty in the health supplements market as well. We are making efforts to reduce the environmental impact in the entire process of planning, producing, using, and disposing of products, such as for these cosmetics and household goods or personal care products. It can be said that Amorepacific's commitment to enterprise-wide environmental management beyond end-of-pipe management began with unlimited liability for environment in 1993. Since our declaration of unlimited liability for environment, we have focused on what we should do rather than what we have been doing and have continued our efforts to show the beauty that contributes to the world. Under the objective that we need to be responsible for service, quality, and the environment until the end, we have emphasized corporate social responsibility for the environment through Amorepacific Green Movement and have been working together with various stakeholders for environmental protection activities through activities such as environment camps. In the 2000s, we started to promote environmental management in a more specific and systematic way. In particular, with regard to plastics, we set goals for reduction, reuse, and recycling, and we made efforts to reduce the amount of plastic waste. In addition, the results of these environmental management practices have been disclosed to internal and external stakeholders through our environmental report. From 2009, we have switched to Sustainable Management Report and have communicated with stakeholders about company-wide sustainability management strategies, economic performance, and social and environmental responsibilities. Next, I would like to cover what we're doing for a more beautiful world and what we have been doing as a commitment for 2030. Now the world is demanding us to act faster than before, responding to climate change, spreading sustainable consumption, and creating an egalitarian society that embraces diverse values has become a common task for mankind to pursue together. Amorepacific declared a promise to achieve together by 2030 based on deep empathy with members and partners, customers, and society and nature, a more beautiful promise, which was declared in 2021. Through this, we believe that the 5 promises will lead to an important change for all of us and become a breakthrough to create a more beautiful world. Among them, I would like to talk in more detail about 2 items that are relevant to today's topic. Number 3, carbon neutrality, and number 4, plastic circular economy. First, I will talk about carbon neutrality. In the mid to long term carbon neutrality roadmap, we see the whole processes of production and disposal of products, and we are going to make many efforts to have renewable and electricity in all of our sites, and we thought that should be one of our utmost priorities. That is why we had production sites, headquarters, and research centers, as well as stores and sales offices to minimize the climate impact that occurs first during the production stage and have 100% renewable energy in all areas. In addition, we will develop products with a reduced environmental footprint in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the entire process, including materials used and disposal of products. We will cooperate with many stakeholders, including government companies, partners, civic groups, customers, and others to solve the climate crisis facing all mankind and to make our home, Earth, more healthy and beautiful. Regarding carbon neutrality, I would like to talk about our renewable energy transition plan. We became a member of Global RE100 in 2021 and are promoting various activities with the goal of renewable energy conversion rate of 35% in 2022 and 100% renewable energy conversion in 2030. First of all, we install solar power generation facilities at our business sites to increase the self-generation rate of renewable energy, converted business vehicles to electric vehicles, and subscribe to and are using Green Premium Rate Plan. In March of this year, we signed a contract to receive renewable energy directly, and in June, we signed a indirect supply contract with a third party to increase the conversion rate of renewable energy. Through these renewable energy security measures, we plan to achieve RE100 by 2030. Through various activities to reduce greenhouse gas, we have been doing our best to decrease the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. In 2021, we had 47,000 tons that was generated at domestic and overseas business sites, which was a 22.9% decrease compared to the base year of 2018. Various organizations such as production, logistics, and buildings have made efforts to save energy, and this is especially true because it is the result of our efforts to convert to renewable energy. At our Shanghai plant in China, we achieved carbon neutrality for each business unit in 2021 by using renewable energy and by purchasing offset credits for emissions corresponding to Scope 1. At Amorepacific, we have our representative Ulsan plant, which has a aim to be carbon neutral, and according to our carbon neutral scenario secured in the first half of the year, we expect to achieve carbon neutrality by 2022, which means that our Amorepacific's major products such as Hwasu and Laneige are going to be produced using 100% renewable energy at the Ulsan plant. The goal of achieving RE100 by 2030 has been announced internally and externally, but we are planning to achieve our goal faster than planned and convert 100% of all business sites to renewable energy by 2025. We made that decision. Next, I will talk about our fourth promise of a more beautiful promise. Reduce the amount of plastic used in product packaging and design plastic packaging materials that are 100% recyclable, reusable, and compostable.
오늘 중점
Today, I would like to particularly focus on the plans and action items to achieve less plastic in relation to a circular economy. We have set 3 overarching directions called 3 C's. The first C, commitment, indicates our commitment on how to reduce the environmental impact of plastics from the 4R perspective. The second C, collaboration, is to restructure the value chain and develop a plastic circulation model through cooperation. The third C is to spread the ethical consumer spirit through communication with customers, transparently disclose environmental information, and empower consumer engagement in the brand through good influence. Among the three C's, let me now introduce you to our plans and implementation cases from the perspective of the 4 R's. The most important aspect of a circular economy is to reduce unnecessary plastic use. In accordance with our less plastic strategy, we have reduced or recycled/reused a total of 1,100 tons of plastic in the last 2 years. We continue to work to reduce plastic use by replacing petroleum-derived plastics that fuel the climate crisis with other materials, remove unnecessary plastics, and develop new types of packaging design. We have 114 products that use recycled plastics and 128 products that apply bioplastics. And as such, we are continuing on with our efforts to reduce the use of petroleum-derived plastics. In the photos, you can see examples of where materials were replaced, and shampoo bars that do not use plastic packaging, and box packaging without tape. The second R is to change the material structure to improve the recyclability of cosmetic containers and to design with unified materials or make it possible to remove or separate. In the first picture, we enable the customer to easily separate and discard the used cosmetic container by applying a metal-free pump, that is a pump with the metal spring removed. If there is no spring in the pump that has been used to help discharge the product contents, it will be easier for the customer to separate for recycling purposes and dispose the used product. In addition, the number of products with easily removable labels is gradually increasing. And the third is to reuse. We introduced the refill service for refill products in 2020, and we plan to add to what we already have. In 2020, we started running for the first time in the industry in Korea a cosmetic refill station where customers can purchase refills of shampoo and body wash products in quantities they want in dedicated refill containers at the refill station. By opening the second store in E-Mart Chaeyang in May 2021, we are focusing on spreading recycling and a zero-waste culture. At Amorepacific, we try not to incinerate the used cosmetic bottles collected, but rather remanufacture them into cosmetic containers again, or upcycle the containers into flower pots, benches, and works of art. In other words, we are increasing our material recycling rate, and every year approximately 200 tons of cosmetic containers are collected through the Green Cycle campaign. Green Cycle is Amorepacific's representative social responsibility activity, and this Green Cycle program has collected 2,354 tons of empty bottles since 2009 and has recently been carrying out the following upcycling activities. Since the second half of last year, we have been pushing ahead with actions going beyond upcycling to regenerate plastic cosmetic bottles into new bottles, which we call the Bottle to Bottle project. Next, let me talk about some of the collaborations that we're engaging in for a closed loop. We are accustomed to linear consumption where we are busy using our limited resource only once to throw away thereafter. In order to shift from this linear resource consumption to a reuse-based circular resource consumption pattern, that is to establish a virtuous cycle for plastics, cooperation with various stakeholders that rids boundaries should be the building block. The cooperation we pursue includes applying a cooperative model to try new recycling methods, support and growth through eco-friendly partnerships, and collaboration in the development of new products and technologies with purchase guarantee conditions. Amorepacific has signed an eco-friendly technology development MOUs with companies like Hansol Paper that develop new eco-friendly materials. And through these collaborations, we plan to promote the development of biodegradable, eco-friendly containers. In addition, with TerraCycle, a global environmental firm, and Eastman, a global special materials company in the US, we signed a business agreement to procure chemically regenerated and recycled plastic in line with our drive to reduce the use of new petroleum-derived plastics. Going forward, through active collaboration, we will continue to do our best as a corporate citizen contributing to responsible consumption and production. Finally, let me end with some words on communication. The aforementioned activities, such as developing packaging materials for products with improved recycling features and collecting and recycling used empty bottles, can only be possible with consumer participation. Therefore, Amorepacific is striving to raise awareness on the virtue of value consumption done together and to induce consumer participation. In addition, we are working hard to reach more consumers by collecting feedback on improvements or suggestions through various channels. Beauty that creates a better world with customers exerting a positive influence on the environment and community is the direction we pursue. And we will continue to strive to create a more beautiful world. So that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hong Soo-jung. Now she will answer some questions that were sent to us during the presentation. So the first question is, Amorepacific is the first from the Korean beauty industry to become a member of the global RE100 initiative. In addition to reducing greenhouse gas emission through RE100 initiative, are you enjoying cost savings from a business perspective?
네. 한국은 재생의 에너지 가격이 일반 전기보다 높기 때문에
I would like to mention that renewable energy prices in Korea is higher than that of your typical electricity. So there is currently no cost reduction effect from switching to renewable energy. However, since we believe that ESG management is not an option but a necessity, it is a task that should be pursued even without cost benefits. Global investors are emphasizing ESG management as a principle for investment, and consumers also prefer products and services of companies that consider the environment. So in the future, it is expected that positive impact will be obtained by satisfying consumer needs for eco-friendly value consumption.
Thank you for your answer. Another question is, Amorepacific is focusing on 4 R's with regard to sustainable packaging. What do you think is the most important factor among 4 R's? Could you explain the reason?
네, 4R에 해당하는
I believe that actually all 4 R's are important: reducing, recycling, reusing, and retrieving and recycle again. I think all of them 4 R's are important. We're working hard to set detailed plans for each R, but I believe reducing the absolute amount of plastic usage is the most important. There will be many ways to actually reduce the amount of plastic being used, and what we can do first would be to reduce unnecessary plastic or plastic parts that can be removed. And there could be some alternatives like replacing with other materials. Since everyone knows that plastic is made from fossil fuels, that's why it harms the environment. So that is why it would be best to use different materials made from biodegradable or bio-friendly materials.
Question, if you look at the chatting box, you can see the question 3. This is a question from the Korean audience. To maximize the effect of reuse, those best-selling products need to hire the reusable packaging. Do you have any plans on this? In terms of biodegradable compostable packaging, do you have a plan to be equipped with a designated facility of decomposing?
네, 첫 번째부터
Yes, let me first answer the first part of the question. So reuse is also a critical aspect of the 4Rs. Therefore, it's of course important to increase more reusable packaging, and of course we do have plans accordingly. And I think that our plans can be divided into two. One would be to offer refills. So we are going to continue on to increase the number of products that offer refills. And the second aspect of the plan would be to find a way to reuse products by replacing the packaging. So these are two plans that we have in terms of reuse. And second, on biodegradable and relevant packaging. So using bio-based materials is what we actively recommend. But in the case of biodegradable, compared to the research outcome initially, the time that's spent to have it composted is actually much longer than expected. So the Korean government right now is not actively recommending biodegradable. So depending on the policy direction, we do not plan to expand extensively, but it's more so on the bio-based and recyclable materials that we really want to put the focus going forward.
We have another question from JCIA, Japan Cosmetic Industry Association. Thank you for your beautiful presentation. Are there any legal or microbial safety issue when preparing refill shop?
네, 안전하게
At the factories, we have vacuum packs, and they are very they are safely packaged in most cases. But for refill shops, they're different because the customers would bring their containers and get them refilled. So it is true that we would need to pay more careful attention, especially to the law. And that is why we believe that rather than cosmetics, body shampoo or shampoos have less risk. So that is why we started off with those categories, and we will be more prudent in reviewing the legal requirements so that we can adhere to the health and other hygiene related laws. So we are currently making plans to expand this into other categories.
Last question for Amorepacific. Is there a Korean regulation that would guide the zero carbon policy in cosmetic industry? This is the question from Korean audience.
네. 화장품 업계
Yes, in the cosmetic industry, with regard to zero carbon, what kind of regulation exists? Well, I don't think there is such a regulation as of yet in Korea. And what we're doing is really launch our initiatives based on the various case studies and examples. So through the association, we're looking into the various model cases and we're putting in the efforts. But in terms of a regulation or guideline, it's not in place as of yet. However, the cosmetic companies of Korea, I think it'd be great if we can get together to maybe put in place guidelines. So it'd be great if we have more collaborators.
For answering those questions and for your great presentation. I think it looks like we've covered all of our questions for Ms. Hong Soo-jung. And moving on, we also have another speaker from overseas. Our next speaker is Shuhei Matsumoto of Kao Corporation. He is a group leader of packaging technology research of Kao Corporation. And today, he'll be talking about Japanese plastic circulation strategy and its promotion law, together with Kao's history in developing sustainable package, as well as future vision. Mr. Shuhei Matsumoto, I hand over to you now. Please go ahead.
Yep. Oh, so thank you so much for the introduction. And thank you very much for giving me such an opportunity to talk about our company and also introduce our activity for the environment. So again, my name is Shuhei Matsumoto, working for Kao Corporation in packaging development. And I'm also a member of JCIA, Japan Cosmetic Industry Association. And today, I'd like to talk about Japanese plastic circulation strategy and also packaging ESG strategy of Kao, including our activity for environment in packaging development. And before talking about Japanese plastic circulation strategy, please let me introduce our company quickly. So our headquarters locates in Tokyo, and we founded in 1887. And almost 33,000 people are working for Kao all over the world. Our turnover is roughly 11 billion US dollar. And here is the portfolio of our business. We have 5 business fields: hygiene and living care, health and beauty care business, and life care business, and cosmetic business, and chemical business. And our main business area is in Japan, but also we make business in Europe or Americas and Asian countries. And in next few slides, I will give you the overview of Japanese resource circulation strategy for plastic and Plastic Resource Circulation Act, which is activated in 2022. In 2019, Japanese government stated the resource circulation strategy for plastic. And here the basic principles are 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, plus renewable. And based on the concept of 3 R's plus renewable, Japan advances the following things. So the reducing the usage of single-use plastic, and thorough separation and collection, and cyclical use, and the promotion of the alternatives such as recycled materials and recyclable resources such as paper or biomass plastic, and so on. And in this strategy, those milestones were set up. And in terms of the reduction, 25 reduction in single-use plastic emission by 2030. And in terms of reuse and recycle, reusable or recyclable design by 2025. And 60% of container and packaging to be recycled or reused by 2030. And 100% effective utilization of used plastic by 2035. And in terms of the use of recycled material or biomass plastic, double use of recycled material by 2030 and approximate 2 million tons of biomass plastic should be used by 2030. And to achieve the milestones, the Plastic Resource Circulation Act was made effective in the April of this year. And the purpose of this act is to show all stakeholders what they should do to promote the recycling of plastic resources. And this act required to take following actions. So reduction of usage of plastic products and promotion of the recycling of plastic waste by local town and city, and establishment of a system to promote voluntary collection and recycling by business operators. And here is the basic policy. And for the design and manufacturing stage, this act shows a guideline for the design for the environment. And for the sales and provision stage, reuse of the single-use plastic is required. And for the, And in the stage of the discharge or collection or recycling, this act requires a separation, collection, and recycling by local town or city, and requires the promotion of the collection and recycling by manufacturers and retailers, and it requires a waste reduction and recycling to the consumers. And for us, the manufacturers, the guideline for the design for the environment is very important. So I would like to explain a little bit more about the guideline which is shown in this act. This act shows guidelines about structure and about material. And in terms of the structure, this act shows 8 guidelines. And first is reducing the material. And second is the simplification. And number 3 is long life. Number 4 is partial use for example, reusing part or using the reusable part. And number 5 is monomaterial. Number 6 is easy separation. And number 7 is the collection and carry, easy collection and carry. And number 8 is easy crush and burning. And in terms of the material, there are 4 guidelines. First is replacing to non-plastic material. And second is recyclable material. For example, designing the packaging to be recycled easily, or reducing the types of the material, or avoid the material which gives the bad effect in recycling process. And number 3 is to use the recycled material. And the number 4 is using the biomass material. And as you saw, these guidelines shows many and wide direction because this act is related to the old products which use plastic. For example, toys, furniture, tools, and everything. Therefore, it is abstract. And the detailed and more concrete guideline will be set up by the industry association of each category, and most of them are under discussion. And the guideline has two-floor structure. First floor is the design standard, which is set up by industry association of each category. And the second floor is the criteria of certification, which is set up by government, consulting with industry association. And the purpose of the design standard is to raise the baseline of the packaging design towards plastic circulation. And the criteria of certification intends to show the leading design or technology, and it shows the direction of the development in each category. And JCIA is currently working for the making the design standard for the environment in terms of the cosmetic packaging. And from here now, I would like to explain our ESG strategy. It's called Kirei Lifestyle Plan, and I would like to introduce some of our activities. Kao's mission is enriching the life of the consumer around the world, and Kirei is the Japanese word that means beautiful or clean or fair, good looking, and so on. Kirei lifestyle means living a beautiful life inside out. So at Kao, everything we do is supporting people to live the sustainable lifestyle that they desire. The Kirei Lifestyle Plan is a framework for stepping up innovation in every aspect of our business so that we can generate even more value for people and make further contribution to society. And there are three pillars in our strategy. And first is making everyone's everyday more beautiful. We will aim to empower all the people to enjoy more beautiful lives, greater cleanliness, easier aging, better health, and confidence in self-expression. And second is making thoughtful choice for society. And 100% of Kao brands will make it easy for people to make small but meaningful choice that will shape a more resilient and compassionate society. And third is making the world healthier and cleaner. So 100% of our products will leave a full life cycle environmental footprint that our natural world can safely absorb. And we think packaging can contribute a lot to our mission, and we are aiming for fully recyclable plastic packaging and recycling-based society. And Kao has been working to minimize environmental impact by reducing the amount of plastic used in our product packaging. And here you can see our approach to minimize the environmental impact. One approach is to make the products more compact by concentrating the products and downsizing the container. And other approach is to provide the refills and replacement products. And the film is the very effective to reduce the material weight of the plastic in packaging. So Kao will keep on developing new film packaging and packages fully recyclable. And in next some slide, I would like to show Kao's activity for sustainability, focusing on 4R. So 4R means reduce, reuse, recycle, and replace or renewable. And 4R is the basic principle to reduce the environment impact. And Kao has been developing 4R-based product packaging for past many years. Here is an example of reduction. The size of those two products are different. These products can wash the same amount of laundry by concentrating the liquid. And we reduced the packaging weight by 50%. And at the same time, we can also reduce the CO2 in transportation. Another example of the reduction is by stiff structure of the bottle body. We have reduced approximately 13% of plastic without changing the appearance. And this is the example of downsizing of foaming dispenser. We reduced 34% of plastic in this case. Next is the example of the replace or renewable. We use biomass-based plastic in our product to reduce the fossil-based material to the sustainable material. And here is the example of the replace or recycle. So we use the mechanical recycled PET for some of laundry detergent product and chemical recycled PET for some of cosmetic products. So another example is reuse. So refill is very effective to use the bottle multiple times. And Kao's first refill product was launched in 1991. And since then, we launched a lot of kinds of refill products in the market. Now, more than 370 refill products are in the market. And Kao has developed many types of refill pouches, depending on the orifice of the bottle and the physical property of the content, so that consumer can refill easily. And refilling action is actually, in general, not so convenient for the consumer compared to buying a new product, regular product. So the motivation for the consumer to buy refill product is, for example, to save the money or to reduce the environmental impact and so on. If refilling action is too complicated or too difficult or too annoying, many consumers will buy not refill product, but new regular product, even if it is cheaper or more environmentally friendly. Therefore, we think it is very important to develop the consumer-friendly refill packaging. And in the last section of my presentation, I would like to talk about further step of the packaging development. This slide shows the image of the material circulation. So we use the oil to produce our packaging and consumer use them. And after that, packaging are collected and some of them are burned or landfilled and others would be separated to be recycled. Then recycled material comes back to the raw material to produce a new packaging. And as I explained, Kao has been working a lot to reduce the amount of virgin plastic by using the film or recycled material or renewable material. And film is one of our key material because film is very effective to reduce the plastic of the packaging. And it has good performance to protect the content. But on the other hand, film has difficulty in recycling. To complete the material circulation, we should work more for material collection and recycling. So to recycle the material, there are many processes, collecting, crushing and washing, making the pellet and produce new items. And we are working for each step of recycling to create a new value. And we want to change the mindset that empty packaging after use is to be disposed. We named this project Recyclation, which is the combination word of recycle and creation. We are working together with some local town. So empty refill pouches are collected and we made toy blocks with recycled material from pouches. And we also joined the Kobe Plastic Next project. This is the project retailers, consumer, product manufacturers, and recyclers collaborate with Kobe City to recycle used refill pouches. And 16 companies and organizations joined to this project. And Kao is challenging to recycle the collected pouches by our recycling technology of the multi-layer foil. And this is another example of our activity. We collaborated with Lion Corporation and the retailer Ito-Yokado to conduct separated collection field testing for our used refill pouches. We also challenge to collect the used bottle of personal care and home care products and recycle them from bottle to bottle. This project is supported by Tokyo Metropolitan, and those 4 companies are collaborating together. So Kao is aiming for fully recyclable plastic packaging and recycling-based society. And we keep on challenging to reduce plastic consumption to the utmost low limit and developing fully recyclable plastic packaging. And we keep on challenging to zero waste. So that's all of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shuhei Matsumoto. We'll go ahead and take some time for questions now. If you can see the chatting box, you can see 5 or 4 questions. One of them, you mentioned that JCIA is currently working for making the design standard for the environment in terms of cosmetic packaging. Could you provide us with the details? For example, who is involved in creating the standard, what is it about, and when will it be published? Is it mandatory for the industry to establish a design standard under the Plastic Resource Circulation Act?
Thank you very much. And actually, our standard design guideline was published just yesterday. So JCIA made a task force team to discuss the design standard for the cosmetic packaging. And 9 Japanese companies joined this task force, and the design standard of the JCIA is general standard which covers all the category of cosmetic products.
Thank you. Next question is, what is the biggest hurdle to achieve the closed material circulation?
Yep, thank you so much for the question. And I think it is a collecting process. So in the near future, I believe the technology to recycle plastic from the mixture of the multi kinds of plastic could be established. And the energy for the recycling process could be covered by renewable energies such as wind or water or solar or wave and so on. But in terms of collecting, we have to change the mind or habit of the people to collect more used plastic. And actually, in our recyclation project, we had a lot of difficulty to increase the amount of collecting plastic, and it took very long time to increase the amount. So I think we have to collaborate or work more together with town or local town or city or infrastructure company to establish good and convenient collecting sorting system.
Thank you for the answer. We have 2 additional questions in the chat box. If you can see the chat box, the question number 4, I think this question comes from the South Africa. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Has the quality of the recycled PET been assessed in terms of protecting the integrity of the product during its shelf life? If so, what percentage of recycled PET has proven to still provide safety for the product?
Thank you for the questions. I think each company has original criteria to ensure the safety. But for example, FDA or EFSA or Japanese government provides a guideline to guarantee the safety for the product. So I think each company should judge which is good or not. So it's unclear answer, but Yeah.
So we have the last question.
Mhm.
Upon the, this is the question number 3. Upon the condition of recycled plastic material, I'd like to know about the current status, both overall in Japan and specifically in Kao. Is recycled material suitable for bottle-to-bottle use?
Thank you for the questions. Actually, for the packaging, the plastic which is used in our product, it's not so suitable or recyclable from bottle to bottle because it sometimes colored or it's directly printed. So in Japan, the bottles of the beverage has a very strict guideline, non-color or non-direct printing and so on. So in the bottle of the beverage can be recycled from bottle to bottle, but currently it is a little bit difficult for our product.
Thank you again, Mr. Shuhei Matsumoto, for answering those questions and for the great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。Our last presenter is Mr. Grégory Anar. Mr. Grégory Anar is the head of sourcing and product development of L'Oréal in North Asia. He will present L'Oréal's work on sustainable and eco-friendly packaging in the context of L'Oréal's commitments on carbon neutrality. Mr. Grégory Anar, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I will disconnect my camera to make sure that the connection is good and you can hear me well. So I'm very happy to share with you today our approach at L'Oréal regarding sustainable packaging. And first, I will introduce our global sustainability commitment and spend a few minutes on the overall sustainability program at L'Oréal. Then we will focus on packaging. I will summarize quickly what are the must-have of our packaging and how sustainability is a key element of our conception frame. And then we will get into the details of our sustainable packaging commitments, the key strategies with what we call the 3R, and the key levers we're activating with concrete examples to deliver on our ambitious commitment. Next slide, please. So before we dive in, I will just say a few words about the L'Oréal Group. We are a pure player in beauty. This is our area of expertise. This is the only sector where we operate. The group has a long history and was created in 1909. We are the #1 company in beauty worldwide, and we are operating in more than 150 countries. So this leadership creates also a clear responsibility, and we are very aware of our footprint. We deliver 7 billion products produced in 39 factories to more than 1 billion consumers. Next slide, please. So you see on this slide, those are the 35 global brands of L'Oréal, starting with L'Oréal Paris. But you may also be familiar with other key brands such as Lancôme, La Roche-Posay, Biotherm, Giorgio Armani, Kérastase, or Garnier. And the point here is that we have a wide variety of brands who address different consumers, different aspirations, different price points, different distribution channels, with some products that are directly sold to the consumer or to hairdressers or to retailers. So it's a chance that we have to own a unique portfolio with such diversity, from high luxury to professional product or what we call traditionally mass market. But you will see that when it comes to sustainable packaging, we may adapt the strategies, we may adapt the technical solutions, but the target, the commitment is exactly the same for all brands and for all products. Next slide, please. So in June 2020, the L'Oréal Group launched a very ambitious and complete sustainability program called L'Oréal for the Future. And the sustainable packaging topic is one of the key parts of this program. I will show you a quick video to introduce you to the program. L'Oréal for the Future comes in the continuity of Sharing Beauty with All, the precedent sustainability program launched by the L'Oréal Group in 2013. As you can see, L'Oréal has been engaged in sustainable transformation for many years, but our latest commitments are more complete, more ambitious, and more connected to our ecosystem. So let's see the quick movie on the program, please.
At L'Oréal, we have long been committed to sustainability. But the world is changing fast, and with higher stakes must come stronger commitments. This is why we are launching L'Oréal for the Future, our new sustainability program. Our strategy is twofold: transforming our activities to respect planetary boundaries and contributing to solving urgent environmental and social challenges. With bold 2030 targets, our goal is to ensure our activities are respectful of the planet's boundaries. 100% of our sites will be carbon neutral by 2025. 100% of the industrial water used in our plants will be recycled and reused by 2030. 100% of our bio-based ingredients and packaging materials will be sustainably sourced by 2030. 100% of the plastics for packaging will come from recycled or bio-based sources by 2030. 100,000 people from underprivileged communities will gain access to employment by 2030. We will make available the information on the environmental and social impact of our products. But reducing our impact is not enough. We want to make a positive contribution to society. We are creating a 50 million euros charitable endowment fund to support highly vulnerable women. We're also allocating 50 million euros to help restore 1 million hectares of degraded ecosystems and 50 million euros to promote a more circular economy. With these objectives, we want to inspire people to take action for a more sustainable future. L'Oréal for the Future.
Thank you. So I will not review all the detailed commitments, but you can see the ones that are at the bottom of the chart. They are related to sustainable packaging. And there are a few key messages. The first thing is that they are public commitments. So they have to be very robust in the way they are measured and in the way they are reported. They have to be auditable. So behind those commitments, there are some very detailed rules, methodologies, and KPI. The second point is that they are extremely ambitious. We know when we compare with the industry that we are aiming for very high targets, including some absolute targets, like 100% recycle or bio-based plastic. And third, they're coming very fast. And the teams are acting today. To deliver such ambitious targets, for the most part, for 2030, we need to act now, converting our products now, working now on the innovation to resolve the technological tensions that we need. We even have some commitments for 2025. So to develop some of the solutions I will show you later, it could take several years. To be ready in 25, our teams are acting now. So next slide, please. So when we activate our L'Oréal for the Future program and our sustainable packaging approach, we are always operating within a wide ecosystem. So I work for operations and I'm in charge of sourcing and product development for North Asia. And what we do in operation is that we design and develop, we source, we manufacture products, and we serve our customers in the respect of our three fundamentals: quality, safety, and sustainability. But the point I want to stress here, and it's materialized by the branches and the connections on the chart on the right side and the left side, is that in our sustainability journey, we are not alone. We will not be successful by ourselves, and we have to be open and work with what we call the extended value chain. So we are working with our suppliers, we are working with our partners to design and source the sustainable innovative solutions. And I will show you some examples later. We manufacture in our own plants in a sustainable way, but we also have to do the same with some contract manufacturers. And in the end, those products, we have to co-develop them with our consumers. They will be sustainable, but they have to be accepted and ideally loved by our consumers. Next slide, please. So this is why when we design and develop products and services, we work within this frame. You see there are 4 fundamentals and 3 user-centric stakes. First, of course, we are design to safety and design to quality, which are obviously a non-negotiable. Then we have design to agility, to conceive products on which we have the agility to react quickly, to scale up rapidly if they are successful, or scale down if they are not. And then design to cost, as we can only launch products that are affordable for consumers with the diversified price point depending on the brand. Then on the right, we have 3 user-centric stakes. And the first one is design to sustainable. This is the must for all our products. We will come back to focus on that point. Then, design to performance. How do we create a unique moment, a unique experience for our consumer? The point here is to design to sustainability central. It is mandatory, but there are other elements, and we are going for the full 7 priorities, and one should not come at the expense of the other. I will take one example. When we use some recycled material, we always take the quality that guarantees the highest safety and the highest quality to our consumers. This is why, for instance, we are using food-grade approved material. This is not a necessity for cosmetic products to use food-grade approved material, but we find that the levels of quality of these materials are the one aligned with our safety and quality standard. Next slide, please. So now I will zoom in on the sustainable packaging and focus on the 4 commitments that we took. And then we will develop and illustrate them one by one. The first commitment is regarding intensity. Our priority is overall to use less resources, so we commit to reduce the quantity of packaging used for our product. Here we measure a ratio, the number of grams of packaging material to package a gram of formula. And we commit to reduce this ratio by 20% in 2030. The second commitment is that we will not use any virgin plastic in our packaging by 2030. It means that by this date, we will have converted the totality of our plastic consumption to either recycled plastic or bio-based plastic. The third commitment is that by 2025, 100% of our plastic packaging will be refillable, rechargeable, recyclable, or compostable. And the last commitment is that 100% of our new or renovated products will be eco-designed. Next slide, please. So what does it mean to be eco-designed? Several years ago, with the help of external partners, NGOs, some critical friends, we have developed a unique tool called SPOT. SPOT stands for Sustainable Packaging Optimization Tool. And this is in fact a multi-criteria tool that aggregates into one score the environmental footprint of a product. The footprint is measured in the most holistic way, from the extraction of raw materials or the production of the packaging material to the manufacturing, of course, but also the end of life of our product, or the product usage, like for instance, the heating of the water to rinse a shampoo formula. We have analyzed the totality of the L'Oréal products in our portfolio in 2019, and this has become our baseline, our reference for future comparisons. Anytime we launch a new product or we restage an existing product, we make sure at key steps of the development process, and in particular when we freeze the conception, that the new product has a better footprint than the previous one. This is really a continuous improvement approach, step by step and product by product. We assess several thousand of new products every year. And for 2021, we are getting quite close to the target, with 96% of our new products with an improved profile. Next slide, please. In order to improve our packaging footprint, we have different levels, and we have regrouped them under what we call the 3R eco-design strategy. The first R is reduce the amount of resources we use, and this is the work we do on intensity that I just mentioned. The second R is replace. The idea is that we replace material that are impacting the environment by other material that will have a better environmental footprint. The third R is recycle, by developing packaging that will contribute to the circular economy. I will give you some concrete illustration for each of those R. Next slide, please. So let me start by reduce. This can be achieved through different strategies. For instance, we can redesign the object to make it lighter. We can also increase its size. For instance, we have shampoos in 250 ml and we have shampoos in 300 ml. If we increase the cell of the 300 ml or we replace the 250 ml by a 300 ml, the quantity of material used by gram of formula is improved by the bigger size. And then we can refill, in which case the refill, the second or the third purchase, is obviously using much less resources than a traditional product. So I put 4 examples on the chart. On the first 2, we do not change really the type of packaging, but we make them significantly lighter. The third one is what we call an eco pack. Instead of selling shampoo in a rigid plastic bottle, we sell it in a flexible pouch that could be up to 80% lighter. And we make this type of packaging available on more and more brands. The fourth one is maybe more disruptive, as we're talking of makeup, we're talking about luxury. But this is a recent launch under the Valentino brand for new lipstick, for which the consumer, for the second purchase, is only buying a refill. Instead of the full package, this is just an internal cartridge containing the formula that the consumer is buying and inserting in the original lipstick external packaging. Next slide, please. So the second lever is replace. Again, replace impactful material, but material that have a better environmental profile. It could be PCR, post-consumer recycled material. And you can see on the chart that there are new type, more efficient ways to generate recycled material. And we'll come back on those. It could also be biosourced resin in the second column. But we have to be careful also that those biosourced material are efficient from the sustainability standpoint, as it should not divert land, water, resources from elementary needs. This is why we prioritize for the moment recycled material. And then we are assessing if the next generation of biosourced material can bring the environmental improvements we're expecting. The third option here is to move to zero plastic, and for instance, to replace plastic by cardboard. You can see a few examples below. The first one is the tube, where we replace a significant part of the tube plastic by corrugate. But we need to maintain the key properties from the mechanical, the usage, the formula protection standpoint, sorry. So let's review a small video to illustrate this example, please.
Plastic pollution is a major concern today. By 2050, the ocean will have more plastic than fish. As part of our global commitment to sustainable innovation and production, La Roche-Posay is launching the first eco-conscious hydrating lotion, a formula more respectful of marine life that provides an ultra-high and ultra-resistant sun care protection using the very first generation of tubes integrating cardboard. This new launch represents a great progress for cosmetics packaging. With 45% less plastic than an average tube, this is the first big step in our commitment to reduce the use of virgin plastic.
Acting for the environment is more crucial than ever. These very first anti-use tubes integrating cardboard represent a step further in improving the environmental footprint of packaging. And our objective is not to stop here, but to extend this pilot technology to other important products and make it available in as many countries as possible.
This is the result of an ambitious co-development. We have replaced part of the plastic in the tube with cardboard. To do so, we have adapted our manufacturing processes to this technological breakthrough. This allows us to reduce by 45% the use of plastic compared to similar plastic tube. In launching this new eco-conscious tube for Antelios, we are creating together a more sustainable packaging. This is a great first step.
This innovation is part of La Roche-Posay's global roadmap to drastically reduce the use of virgin plastic in all its products and ranges, with the objective to reach 70% of recycled plastic by 2025.
Thank you. So you can see also the second example with the La Roche-Posay launch in a bottle, which is combining cardboard and plastic. And then the third example is a totally plastic-less launch. It's really with the support of our formulation laboratories, we developed a shampoo bar. It looks like a soap bar, but it has the properties and the cosmeticity of a shampoo formula. It is a solid shampoo. And it is sold in an 8-gram cardboard box, which replaces the equivalent of 500 ml of liquid shampoo that could use up to 50 grams of plastic. And then last, for what remains in plastic, the direction is to move to PCR. I just took some examples, but we converted already the majority of our shampoo bottles in PET to 100% recycled material. Next slide, please. So still in the second R, replace, I want to focus now on our roadmap to zero fossil plastic by 2030. As you can see, on top of this absolute commitment for 2030, we have also set an intermediary target for 2025 to create a strong momentum and achieve impactful results quickly. Our target is to be already at 50% PCR in 2025. To share with you the progress with a strong acceleration in 2021, we are already at 21% recycled material, on the way to 50% target in 4 years. And on PET, which is the most commonly used material for our bottles, we're already at 67% PCR in 2021. So the target may be looking far in 2030, but the acceleration is happening already now with impactful results. Next slide, please. So the third R and the last of our strategy is recycle. And again, our commitment is that by 2025, 100% of our plastic packaging will either be refillable, rechargeable, recyclable, or compostable. And we are making good progress with different types of solutions. either with packaging which are already in a recyclable material, in a recyclable format, and with no recyclability disruptors, as this is the case of our L'Oréal Professional Aluminum Tube, or with quite innovative solutions, as you can see on our luxury products. For the Mugler fragrance, we created a fountain on the point of sale where the consumer comes with his packaging to do the refill. For Lancôme, on a very premium product, Absolu, we are directly selling to the consumer a recharge with a formula that can be reset in the original packaging. Next slide, please. So we discussed the program, the commitment, the strategies, but I want to conclude on what is fueling our progress, on what remains a very challenging topic. There is for sure still a part of the progress that can be made by rolling out, deploying at 100% at full scale some of the technical solutions that are existing, that are mature. Integrating PCR in PET bottle is quite a mature solution. So this is why we're able to go fast on this. It is not so easy still to secure the right quantity, the right quality of material, but the plan to 100% PCR PET on bottle is quite clear. On the other hand, in front of the diversity of brand, the diversity of packaging, from fragrance, mascaras, flexible pouches, skincare serum, we have to create, to invent solutions, especially as we set up the clear vision to protect the other key conception factors, safety, quality, performance, experience. And those inventions, they are the product of our collaborations with a network of partners and experts committed to the same sustainability ambition. I already presented you some of those paper tubes and bottles developed with our partners, Albea and Paper Bottle Company. On the right-hand side, you see some of the projects we're working on, more on the front of material innovation, with Lanzatech, Total, or Carbios. So we'll show you now a quick video on our partnership with Carbios and its first concrete application for biotherm. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is my, that's my conclusion slide. Sorry. Next one. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the final message, is that for us, there is no competition when it comes to sustainability. And we have developed rich partnership in many parts of the world. And this is also one of our priorities here in North Asia, to associate and build solutions with partners that want to join the revolution of sustainable packaging. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Grégory Arnal. We have a question. Can the integrated cardboard plastic tubes be readily recycled? Are the materials separable by recycling facilities, or what is their post-use fate? Grégory?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yes, sorry, I can hear you well. I can hear. This is really improving, and it's also very diverse by countries. So we launched those innovations, those cardboard tubes, first in Europe. And the condition of the recyclable capabilities are different by country. So for instance, we are able to recycle as long as we have more than 50% fiber in the UK. And this is the case of our tube. So this tube is recyclable in certain countries. In other countries, the amount of fiber is 90%. We are not there yet. When we started on cardboard tube, we are not even at 50%. But this is, again, as we said, a continuous improvement approach. So we started below 50% cardboard. We were not recyclable. Then we went above 50%. We started to be recyclable in some countries. And then we are working market by market, locally, to try to make sure that those tubes become recyclable. And at the same time, we are trying to increase the percentage of cardboard in the next generation of cardboard tubes.
Thank you. So if you have any questions for the presentation of Mr. Grégory, please type your question
Sorry,
in the chat box.
I see another question on the fact the competitiveness of those costs of those cardboard tubes, and they are, in fact, the process that we have developed is a laminated tube process. It is very similar to what we do on plastic tubes. So the line speed, the industrial efficiencies are very comparable from day one. So there are some minor charges because for sure the quantities are not at scale yet, but this is a very industrial process and the target is to be very competitive versus traditional plastic tubes.
Thank you, Mr. Grégory. I think there is no additional questions for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So with regard to the Ms. Carolyn's presentation, you have a lot of questions. So I think it is a little difficult to answer all of them during this webinar. So we will collect the questions and send them to Ms. Carolyn, and the answers will be provided to the webinar registrants. And for your information, this webinar is recorded and the presentation material will be shared with email for the pre-registrants. And I hope today's webinar served as an opportunity to share experience and achievement of carbon neutrality in the cosmetic industry. Thank you once again for your active participation. Before we wrap up this webinar, I'd like to share my thoughts. I have joined the cosmetic industry 17 years ago. As the years went by, I discovered the power of beauty. The power of beauty. It's a power to make people feel good about themselves. The power to include, the power to transform people, the power to make people dream. And in the end, I think the power to change the world, the power to make the world a better place. You may know that the Russian writer Dostoevsky said and wrote, "Beauty will save the world." It might be slightly overstated, but I definitely believe that the beauty can change the world, make it a better place. And I believe that great companies, leaders like you who are joining today, have an important role to play in improving the world and contributing to solving the world's problem. All right, thanks for all the participants for joining us today. I was your MC, Kyoungok, and I look forward to seeing you once again, hopefully in person in the nearest future as possible. Once again, stay well and healthy. Thank you very much and goodbye. Thank you.